And what is up? We are back to break down UFC 231, the MMA podcast breakdown, joined as always by Sweet Pappy Jones. Pat, what's up, brother?
Big Jake. Oh my
Mm,
goodness,
mm,
we are
mm.
just maxing out UFC 231 breakdown. Very amped up for this card, Jake. The implications for this card. It's fantastic. They're ending the year with a bang. The old UFC.
Yeah, it's December. You got a lot of folks in the northern U.S. and Canada shoveling snow. Pat's in Southern Cali. I'm in Tampa Bay, Florida. We ain't shoveling shit. But we will, like I said, be watching this Saturday UFC 231. A lot of cold folks in Toronto, Ontario at the Scotiabank Arena, I'm sure. But it'll be a fun fight in Canada. Those Canadian fans are rabid, and that's a big old arena they got up there in Toronto. I don't. Is this the same? Is this the same one where they did those big fights between? No, I'm look. This is the one the Leafs play at. So yeah, big old arena there in Toronto. I guess what formerly was known as. You know what? I'm not going to get into the history of the goddamn Scotiabank Center. We got a fight to break down UFC 231, Holloway Ortega and Jacek versus Shevchenko. Huge main and co-main. But I guess Pat, let's start with the prelims, the early prelims. I'll let you set the table. What are we seeing on this UFC Fight Pass card?
Oh, Jake, we are seeing a lot of good stuff on this Fight Pass card. A lot of good stuff altogether, but even just on the early prelims, Carlos Diego Ferreira versus Jesse Ronson. Solid scrap to start off. Uh, Old Fahea, man, he's a beast. 13-2, um, super super tough guy. Only ever lost to Dustin Poirier and Beneil Dariush. Um, solid solid UFC career. Just only thing you can knock against him, just lack of activity. Had 4 fights in like a 1 year period there, and then just 2 fights in the last 3 years. Um, but so it'll be good to see him actually get on this card, taking on Jesse Ronson, Chad Laprice versus Diego Lima in a welterweight scrap, Brad Katona versus Matthew Lopez at bantamweight, and Devin Clark versus Alexander Rakic at light heavyweight. Good scraps all the way around. Some good style matchups there. I'm thinking they're going to be starting off nice on the Fight Pass portion.
Yeah. You know, I admittedly don't make a regular habit of watching those UFC Fight Pass cards, but I'm gonna have my eye on this one. A couple fights that should be interesting. Diego Lima, obviously the brother of big time Bellator fighter Douglas Lima, has slipped a bit. He lost his last fight in Titan. Before coming over to the UFC, losing on the tough finale card, and then losing again to Yushin Okami on a UFC on Fox card earlier this year. He might be fighting for his UFC contract, pardon me, against the tough Canadian Chad Laprice, who we also come through on the Tough series. Another guy who you might recognize from the Dana White series, the first season of it, YouTube Dana White Looking for a Fight series, I guess, a couple of years ago. Went down to Sioux Falls, and the light heavyweight Devin Clark since then has a 3-2 record in the UFC. Lost to Jan Blakovic, but recently roared back with a decision win against Mike Rodriguez. So I'll have my eye on them. Then we bump up to the Fox Sports 1 card. A lot more familiar names on this. I pretty easily recognize all 8 names in the 4 fights on the Fox Sports 1 card that I think comes on at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. What do you think about those fights?
Oh, Jake, the trend of solid scraps just continues. It continues to ratchet upwards. They're kicking it off with a very strong grappling bout at 155 pounds between Olivier Aubin Mercier versus Gilbert Durino Burns. Of course, both these guys very well rounded, but definitely more known for their grappling prowess. Both guys on a good little run right now. Uh, Going to be a very solid start to the uh, Fox Sports 1 portion of the card, followed by a very nice fight at 185 pounds. Eric Anders versus Elias Theodorou. Strength versus technique, some might say, in this one. Although Eric Anders has a great technique everywhere he goes, man, he is a solid 185 pounds. Elias Theodorou, he's got a good skill set himself, good on the feet, good on the ground. Should be a very nice scrap there. Then we got a great women's flyweight bout with Caitlin Chukagian versus Jessica Evil Eye. Jessica Eye just got back onto her winning ways. She had a 4-fight losing streak going on there. Got back on track this year in January with a split decision win over Kalindra Faria, and then just more recently in June beat Jessica Rose Clark by a unanimous decision there. Very glad to see Jessica Eye doing her thing. She's got a tough one against Chukagian, though. Chukagian, definitely a very tough fighter. She's on a 3-fight winning streak now herself. She is 4-1 overall in the UFC. Most recently, just beat Alexis Davis by a solid unanimous decision in July. Also beat Mara Borella in January, and then last year beat Irene Aldana via split decision at UFC 210. So she's got a lot of momentum going herself. Going to be a nice fight at 125 pounds. Capped off with a women's strawweight bout between Claudia Gadelha and Nina Ansaroff. Claudia Gadelha, one of my favorites at 115. She is definitely a beast. One of the top, easily in the top 3, I dare say, at 115 pounds. Just got a victory over Carla Esparza. She's 3-1 in her last 4. Nina Ansaroff, she's been streaking lately herself, coming in to this bout with a 3-fight winning streak. Just having beaten Randa Marcos, who herself is a very tough out, as well as Angela Hill and Jocelyn Jones-Lybarger. So very nice way to cap off the Fox Sports 1 portion of the card and set the table for the pay-per-views, Jake.
Yeah, I have Claudia Gadelha as well in that fight. I think she's the biggest favorite on those Fox Sports 1 prelims. Not to take any away from Nina and Saroff, but I believe the only woman Gadelha had lost to in her entire career before that recent match against Jessica Andrade was Joanna Jędrzejczyk. So she hasn't lost to very many people. The skill set is definitely there. Still relatively young, 29 years old, still getting better, fighting, I think training out of Las Vegas right now. So definitely taking her career seriously. Like you said, stepped in at UFC 225, got a win against Carla Esparza. She's, I think, her entire career never been out of the top 5 of the strawweights, and I think will continue on with her winning ways. Minus 300 against Nina Ansaroff. Up a weight class at women's flyweight, which is nice seeing that division fill out some more. Caitlin Chukagian, a slight favorite over Jessica Eye. It's nice seeing, Jessica Eye is, I think, a very natural 125er. I think that's where she fought back in Bellator. So it's nice to see her fight at a weight class she's more of a fit at. For sure deserves to be a top fiver, but Caitlin Chukagian has looked especially dangerous recently. I know in her last fight against Alexis Davis, another familiar name, she looked pretty good, winning that fight via unanimous decision. Looking to go 3-0 at 125 in the calendar year. Eric Anders and Elias Theodorou. Vegas sees this fight pretty evenly, and this is a big fight for the up-and-comer Eric Anders. He's been given those big tests before. You think the fight against Lyoto Machida, the fight against Thiago Santos, not only the 2 big tests he's gotten, but the 2 losses he's taken in his career. Taking on another big test here, and Elias Theodorou, who would be his biggest win himself, has taken a couple losses. Both have taken a lumping from Thiago Santos. Elias, though, after losing to Brad Tavares last year, has been able to collect a couple wins. So a couple of strikers here. I think I'm gonna go with Eric Anders just because it's college playoff bowl season, and he was a linebacker at Bama. And around this time of year, Bama just they know how to get those wins. So I'll go with Eric Anders, the former college football player, and Olivier Aubin-Mercier against Gilbert Dorino Burns. Another really interesting matchup. Um, Olivier, known to be that slick grappler. Gilbert Burns. Man, I don't want to say he's had a disappointing UFC career because I think he's won more fights than he's lost. I think he's like 6-3, but man, he really had some heat on his name coming in, and almost like an Eric Anders type situation where every time they line up a big opponent in front of him, he's not able to pull it off. Aubin Mercier a slight favorite here at 135. I'm kind of leaning that direction as well, taking the Canadian. Pat, you wanna hit the main card up to? We'll do the co-main and main event on their own like we normally do, but we got three fights, some fun ones before we get to the two title fights. Or yeah, they're both title fights at UFC 231.
Oh hell yeah, bro! We got those co-main and main event title fights, but
Mm.
man, the solid scraps just continue all the way into the main event. Jimmy Manuwa versus the aforementioned Thiago Santos, scrapping at 205. Couple of bangers right there. These guys, they love to throw them things, and, and usually it's knocked out, or one of them gets knocked out throwing them things. So I'm pretty sure someone is going to get knocked out opening up this card. Whether it's going to be Manuel or Santos, oh man, I don't know. That's a real tough one. I feel like in my mind's eye, I'm trying to picture the two. I feel like Manuel may have a bit of a height and reach, although I don't know if it's going to be too much. Um, but gee whiz, that's just going to be a really tough scrap. I think. Oh, I may be leaning Santos early in this one. I think I'm going to go with Tiago in this one to get it done over Manua. Although I mean, flip a coin in that one. That's a tough one. Then we got Hakeem Dawadu versus Kyle Bochniak. Both these guys, they throw down. We got a couple scrappers right here. Both of them coming off of losses, but some fight of the night worthy performances here. Um, I think it's going to be a close one there. I think I'm leaning Dawadu personally there. Um, Dawadu's actually he is coming off of a victory over Austin Arnett, um, and I think he's going to keep those winning ways going. But Bochniak definitely not an easy out. Going to be some fireworks there, I'm sure. Then we got Alex Cowboy Oliveira versus Gunnar Nelson. I freaking love this matchup here. Oliveira, fantastic everywhere the fight goes. Solid striking, solid ground. Gunnar Nelson, fantastic everywhere the fight goes. Solid striking, solid ground. Nelson, more the karate style. Alex Oliveira, more Muay Thai in his striking approach, I would say. But both have great ground games. I would say Gunnar, I have the advantage to in the ground game in this one. Um, but then, oof, I don't know, Alex Oliveira, I may favor just slightly in the striking. I typically like that Thai style over the karate, but man, Gunnar Nelson, he knows how to pick and choose his shots. Um, Geez, that's gonna be a tough one. I don't know. I gotta go with Gunnar though. I think he's gonna get sneaky with it. Maybe work a little submission in that one. Uh, Love old Gunny.
Yeah, these are three fights that I think they really crafted for the hardcore fans. I don't think any of the mainstream fans will recognize any of these names, but all of them, when you really think about it, there are going to be interesting for different reasons. You have Jimmy Manuwa, who's coming off a couple losses, Thiago Santos coming off a couple wins. Normally, in a fight like this, I tend to favor the fighter who's going in an upward trajectory. But man, This is, I was reading a piece on this fight. I forget where, but they used a funny term for both of the fighters in this fight. They called both Jimmy Manuwa and Tiago Santos both quintessential glass cannons, which I thought was a funny way to put it, as both can really dish out a tough wallop. Both of them have shown a I wouldn't say either guy necessarily has a glass chin, but Jimmy Manuwa lost his last two, including one in 42 seconds to Vulcan. Tiago Santos this calendar year took a KO loss to David Branch. I could see either guy delivering that KO blow, either guy taking it. I usually go with the guy on the win streak in Tiago Santos. Just something, for some reason, I'm feeling it's going to be Jimmy's night. Jimmy actually is an underdog plus 180 to Tiago Santos. But I'm going Manoa in that one. You got Hakeem Dawandu against Kyle Bochniak. This is a guy in Bochniak who is just nails tough, but I just think stylistically, Dawandu. I don't know if he has enough to finish the fight, but I'm taking a Dawandu decision here. Dawandu minus 175 in Vegas. And Alex Oliveira against Gunnar Nelson. I think I'm going with the underdog here too. And Alex Oliveira, Gunnar Nelson, just so skilled on the ground. He has embarrassed me. There have been plenty of times I've picked against him, and he has made me look like a fool. And this Saturday night could very much be that all over again. But I just look at his. He has such a hard time securing the takedown, and that's the story of so many fights. I feel like Alex Oliveira is going to be a little too slippery. I feel like not that Nelson can't stand with a good striker. I think back to the time where Nelson embarrassed me when I was sure as the sun was going to rise in the morning that Brandon Thatch was going to beat his ass standing up, and we saw what happened there. But I'm going to stick with Brazilian Cowboy in this one, and my pick is Alex Oliveira. So I guess I'm taking a couple of underdogs in that main event. That leads us up to the main and co-main, where yeah, Pat, you wanna?
Absolutely, Jake. This co-main and main event, I mean, big title fights here, and this really is going to be a big card. It's really capping off the end of the year nicely. Got another big card, shockingly, still in this same calendar month, but man, this is fireworks right here. Double title fight, stacked fights all the way from top to bottom. But this women's flyweight title fight, this is going to be something very special. Valentina Shevchenko versus Joanna and Jacek. Both of these ladies, some of the more accomplished women's mixed martial artists we had. Joanna, I could almost guarantee if anybody's listening to this, they know about what Joanna Jędrzejczyk has done at the UFC women's divisions, strawweight. I mean, just one of the most prolific champions that there's been. I mean, in probably all of UFC. I mean, there hasn't been many champions that have put together as many title defenses as she had. What did she have? She had five. Uh, yeah, five
Yeah.
different defenses.
I think by definition, she is the most prolific female UFC champion ever.
Yeah, I mean, well, at least as far as fights and everything like that. I mean, because Ronda Rousey, she did have um, she had the six defenses there, if I'm
Oh,
not
she had
mistaken. But
six.
then,
Okay, yeah.
yeah, she had six. But
Man,
then,
fuck Ronda.
um, yeah, then when she got her ass beaten, she left. She ran away to fake fighting. Joanna and Jacek, she lost twice to Rose Namajunas. She got back on that horse. She took a good fight from Tisha Torres, and now here she is, getting a crack at the UFC 125 pound belt. This is actually the women's 125-pound belt that's never even been defended yet. It was awarded to Nico Montano when she won the Ultimate Fighter
Bum.
uh, when she won the Ultimate Fighter, and she
Bum
never made it
status.
to defend the championship. And actually, this could be very interesting because when Joanna Jędrzejczyk won her UFC strawweight championship, she was actually the second fighter to win the title. She took it from Carla Esparza, who won it on the Ultimate Fighter, and it was awarded to her there in her
Semi
first
bum.
defense against not the Cookie Monster, not the Cookie Monster. Uh, she came up and she smashed Esparza, took it, and she was the technically the second woman to hold the strawweight championship. But Esparza was a footnote, just kind of as the first. Joanna was really holding it down there. Then have the five successful defenses. So could have a very similar story to the UFC women's 125-pound belt. But holy smokes, she has a very tough test in Valentina Shevchenko, and this is a woman that they've fought before. They've fought in kickboxing, and Shevchenko has beat Ian Jacek every time. But this is mixed martial arts. This is going to be, um, different weight class. They're going to be meeting at the middle. Shevchenko normally fighting at 135. Ian Jacek normally fighting at 125. Shevchenko, she's gonna have the size advantage, just being the bigger girl, cutting down. Um, and I mean, they're just both as good as it gets everywhere it goes, with the striking, with the ground game. I mean, you can look at what some of these women, what Valentina Shevchenko was able to do against, I mean, Juliana Pena, Holly Holm, some of these women that have just destroyed people. What Joanna Jędrzejczyk has been able to do against Jessica Andrade, Claudia Gadelha, the women that beat everybody. That's who Valentina and Joanna beat. They beat the women that beat everybody. They're just very cream of the crop, top talent. Um, Man, and even though Jacek got a lot of heat for her fight with Rose Namajunas and her perceived bullying role, um, maybe getting caught up a little bit in her own hype. Who knows what all happened there? But I'm still a fan of Joanna. I love her style. She's definitely she's scrappy. She's a great champion. Big fan of Valentina as well. Valentina, fantastic. I'm probably gonna have to go. I'm doing this just based on size and the fact that she's won multiple kickboxing matches against her. I gotta go with Valentina. I would love to see Joanna get it done, but I mean it's really hard for me to root against either of these ladies. But just picking with my head, Jake, I think Valentina's gonna get it done here.
And like what a great fight this is. Like right now in women's MMA, there are two fights to be made far and above anything else, and that's this fight, Joanna Jędrzejczyk against Valentina Shevchenko, and there's also Cyborg versus Amanda Nunes, a fight we're gonna see later this month. It's gonna be an amazing month for women's MMA, and you bring up that their fighting history. I think Shevchenko back in their Muay Thai game days, Shevchenko was 3-0 against Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and that was for a real specific reason, which was Shevchenko, is a little bit bigger, and Jędrzejczyk isn't just smaller, but she fights a smaller game. She likes to fight inside the pocket. During her title run, everyone that she went up against was more than happy to just walk into that jab and get sawed up every time and come into the pocket and fight with her. Whether it was Andrade, Torres, who else, Gadelia, whether it was Esparza trying to wrestle with her, all of them brought the fight to Jędrzejczyk, where she would just saw chicks up. Rose Namajunas made her fight a different fight. She stayed on the outside, and Joanna had a little bit of trouble making up that distance. And that's something Shevchenko is like a wizard at. You watch that fight against Holly Holm, which really, I mean, I really hadn't bought in to how good Shevchenko was until I saw that fight. Holly Holm is somebody who, like, one of the best, if not the best, women's boxers and kickboxers of all time, knows footwork so well, and usually in most of her other fights isn't just the better fighter at footwork, but is absolutely literally running circles around her opponents. Shevchenko had Holm just confused as to what to do, because whether it was counter punches or kicks, Shevchenko just tore Holly Holm up. Holly Holm did not know how to make up that open space, and I think Joanna is going to have a really tough time closing that gap, trying to get inside there on the pocket. And even if she is able to get into the pocket, Shevchenko is great on the inside. We've seen in exchanges with Amanda Nunez, and other top tier fighters. I mean, I still kind of feel like both of those fights against Nunez are really the only red marks on her record. I kind of feel like Valentina Shevchenko might be the best female mixed martial artist alive right now, over an Amanda Nunez, over a Chris Cyborg. Um, and yeah, I think you're gonna see a lot of folks put money on Jacek, because on Vegas, that line at plus 260, very tempting. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. I really think that Valentina is not only stylistically, favored in this fight, but I think she might even get the finish here. So yeah, I'm taking Shevchenko, and I mean, man, it's a tough spot for Jędrzejczyk to be in, because she is, far and away one of the best women in the world, but to lose two in a row to the current champ at 15 and then move up, and if she does have a lot of problems with Valentina, she'll be in that weird, Joseph Benavidez zone of needing to win like 7 fights in a row before she gets a title shot. But long story short, I'm taking Shevchenko in this one.
I like that. Disagree with any of your points there, Jake. Definitely solid analysis and breakdown as always. That's what everybody comes to the MMA podcast for. And getting into that main event, though, holy smokes! Max Holloway, Brian Ortega, featherweight champion. Max Holloway, he had a little bit of a scare there with his last fight. I want to say, wasn't that it was initially Ortega that he was slated to meet up against, where he had to pull out, if I'm not mistaken, Jake.
I think so. I think Max has not made it to the last 3 fights he was scheduled in. So God
Yeah,
forbid,
had
but
oh no, we're too close. We're too close. The injuries, the weight cutting issues. It was a scary little situation there. Max Holloway has not fought in it'll be over a year actually when he steps into the octagon this weekend, and not disappointed in that. It's sad to see someone who's on a dozen fight winning streak get their momentum halted like that, especially when they win the championship and then defend it and are looking as dominant um, as they have been. But when you have the kind of reports, coming out about and just the slurred speech and things like that, you can never take enough time and be too cautious with that. And I think, Dominic Cruz really showed when he was out for such a long time with his injuries that you can come back for, even an extent. I mean, Dominic Cruz was multiple years. This is literally just a couple days over 1 year. But, ring rust, not necessarily a factor, but holy smokes, yeah. Max Holloway has just been looking unbeatable almost in his 12 fight winning streak. I mean, beating literally everybody. That's just a significant portion of the roster. And Jose Aldo beating him the way he did, just extended beatdowns, third round TKOs every time. TKO and Pettis, taking out solid wrestlers and Ricardo Lamas and, well-rounded killers like Jeremy Stevens and Charles Oliveira, Cub Swanson. The list goes on and on. All different guys, different styles. He has just advanced his game to such a point from when he made his UFC debut at 4-0, taking on Dustin Poirier in a fight he gave Dustin Poirier all he could handle for as long as it started. But Dustin Poirier was able to snatch up a mounted triangle armbar and put Max away. But man, he's just made leaps and bounds since then. Still just coming into his prime, just 26 years old. This is going to be a great fight, and he's got a hell of a fighter against him with Brian Ortega. I mean, Ortega, one of the most highly touted prospects, undefeated, um, just been finishing everybody, uppercutting Frankie Edgar off his feet like he was Debo or something, choking everybody out, KOing everybody. Um, and that's the crazy part of it too. He's had decisions, but not in the UFC. Ever since he came into the UFC, he's finished literally every fight he's had. I don't think we've really ever seen that with people. Usually it'd be they're a killer outside the UFC, then they come in, they get on the decision train. Opposite, opposite with Brian Ortega. Uh, this is another guy just getting better. Young man himself, 27 years old, just getting into the peak of his career, and you could definitely, you could definitely, um, you could definitely see it just just looking at the progression he's made. And actually, if you if you go to his Wikipedia right now, apparently this fight has already happened, and
I saw
he
that.
submits
He won in the
Max
fourth
Holloway in
round.
the
That
fourth
shit's
round.
crazy.
Yeah,
What?
fourth round. Oh wow, someone's saying that finishing streak is gonna happen, but
Dude, someone
oh
came
boy,
from the future and delivered us this news via changing the
wow.
Wikipedia. Dude, it is official. I don't even know
Sorry,
why. I don't even know why we're
spoiler alert.
breaking down this fight. But
I know this turned into a review.
Max Holloway loses the belt to Brian Ortega, fourth round triangle choke.
Wow,
Wow. I can't wait to
wow.
watch this fight. This sounds
Not
exciting.
did not see that happening. Did not see that.
Yeah, right.
I know, right? I wonder if it was a back and forth affair up until then, but no, that's bullshit. You know what? Jake, damn it, I think this Wikipedia, this must be from an alternate universe because I think
Wait.
the blessed era continues. I think Max Holloway is going to piece up Brian Ortega. Man, both of these guys, and it's so I could honestly legit see this fight going either way. I could see either of these guys being just as dominant in this fight as they've been previous opponents. They are both so strong everywhere it goes. I feel like Holloway's better on the feet, but he's really short up his ground game, and vice versa. Brian Ortega is a beast on the ground, but has continued to shore up his stand up game as well. But it starts standing, and I think Max is going to keep it standing. I think he's going to box up Ortega, and I think he's going to be able to avoid the bad situations on the ground if it does go there. I think the blessed era continues, Jake. I think, I don't know if I see this one going to a finish. I think this one's going all 25. I think it's going to be fireworks, Jake. It's going to be like Boondock Saints. It was a firefight, and Max Holloway's going to win.
I like that prediction. P Money, I'm also going with a decision, but I think it's going to be a relatively one-sided fight. Vegas has the line relatively close. Or Ortega a slight underdog at plus 110. Holloway coming in as the favorite at minus 130. I think Max is going to win this fight pretty decisively. And, in so many ways, they're very similar. They're both young. They're both going to be around for a while. Like I mentioned before, I think Holloway will eventually move up to 55, and it will open up a spot at 45 where Brian Ortega might very possibly step into the throne. But one thing that's very different when you look at their fights over the last couple years is in every single fight, Max Holloway completely and systematically shuts all of his opponents down. He doesn't lose rounds. He embarrasses whoever steps in. I mean, he has looked so masterful, both standing up and on the ground. And not only that, but he pushes everyone to this pace that they just can't keep up with. I mean, in both fights against Jose Aldo, who had questions going into the fifth round against Mark Hominick. Maybe that was the only time we questioned his gas tank. But Aldo pushed the pace in that fight so hard that he won each one at the end of the third round. And a guy in Brian Ortega that you look at his past few fights, when he fought Renato Moicano, he was getting pieced up. I think Clay Guida similarly was leading the scorecard going into the third round before Brian Ortega was able to score that KO. He's been in a lot of fights where he's been in trouble and somehow been able to find his way out of it, whether it was by outpacing, kind of similarly to Max, but he's not going to be able to outpace Max Holloway. There's absolutely no chance that happens. As far as outsmarting them and catching them, when they slip up, again, Max Holloway, I don't think is the kind of guy who's exposing himself to, potential spots where he gets guillotined, stuff like that. Now, that said, if he does, Brian Ortega is going to take full advantage of any slip up. But I just, I see where he's been getting handled and been able to figure out something to come back and roar back. Max Holloway is not the kind of guy where you can just throw a Hail Mary against him because he's already going to be up 100-0 when you get to that point. So I don't know. I hate to pick against someone who is undefeated and looked as electric as T City has, but Max Holloway, one of the best champions the UFC has right now. Especially you look at what he's done recently. Hopefully, and he's been in the news too, said a lot of inspiring, motivational things about mental health and depression. If you're struggling with any of that, I would definitely suggest you go and check out what he has had to say. Both guys, giant inspirations to all the fans in their communities and whatnot. That's another similarity between the two. Both seem like real good guys. But in this one, I just, I don't know. Ever since the fight was made, I just had a very, very strong gut feeling that this was going to be all Holloway. And I'm sticking to that one. Pat, anything else for the kind listeners before we put a bow on it and put it under the Christmas tree?
Jake, it's nothing but love for all the kind listeners. Nothing but love for you. Nothing but love for everybody except for Alan Hamilton, that rotten bastard.
Fuck that guy, dude. Fuck that guy.
God damn.
Piece of shit.
No, always a pleasure. Glad we got to break down this upcoming fight card. Can't wait to see how it breaks down. Hopefully that prediction was from an alternate reality. But I got no skin in this game either. I'm just hoping for some solid scraps, brother. And always a pleasure talking.
Yeah, it was either some dipshit who was just editing Wikipedias for the fuck of it, or a legitimate time traveler. So it was probably a legitimate time traveler. We thank you for listening. Fuck Alan Hamilton, and enjoy 231. We will be back next week to break it down, back from our break. We appreciate you staying with us. We love the shit out of you. And until next week, we gone.